Hello everyone and most welcome to 820. We are well endowed with a very sunny day here in February. Quite incredible. What a joy. I just visited a local church and I got a little doses of spirituality as well. Long missed. It's almost like one has been on a spiritual starvation. But here in God's close country, it's all different. I would like to talk today about reversing binary opposition. I mentioned the other day, maybe one of the most pertinent reasons why modern man is so stressed out, filled with anxious worry, constantly changing his or her mind. I think that is the most common feature of today's thinking. You're talking about 20-second memory, the goldfish memory. Everybody is turning around these days. My favorite example is, as usual, Bertrand Russell, who changed his opinion 20 times. But it is very common and it is something modern. I don't think anything could be more modern than just the thing that constantly changing one's opinion. And it means not only changing one's opinion, but changing one's direction. And do that on a regular basis, every 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And in the end, your opinions, your direction is so shallow, so narrow, so lacking in power, so you can't really have a direction anymore, and there is no continuous you don't exist, so to speak. And no one put this better to terms than Jean-Paul Sartre, who said that it was a disgust deep down in existence. It was horrible. And I think that is modern man. We don't have anything to cling on to anymore. And it's only time that gives spirituality. Here in Greece, it's been continued for millennia, unchanging, in the same direction. And that is what builds up the direction. The stamina, the prana, the ki, the energy. And what's taking away the direction is this fixation with opposition. Because every time you don't ground yourself in terra, in la tierra, and open yourself up to the sky, in between sky and earth, you are situated. You are a living being there, thanks to the difference between earth and sky. And only when you are balanced in this position, body and mind, you will be able to have a proper direction. A direction that is not superficially based on opposition. Oddly enough, some millennia ago, this opposition started here, probably with a trauma, but it's developed in the Occident more than anything similar. And in the end, we only have the binary oppositions. And as we all know, to have a positive side, you need to have a negative side. They are codependent. And that will mean that in order to believe in something, you must also put an unbelief into the question. It's not like you have a tradition or a ceremony or liturgy or a doing with your body that can be persistent, that can be the truth. Instead, you only have way up in the head, in the reflective consciousness, in the transcendental, in the world of Max Tegmark or Hugh Everett, somewhere way out of this world at a distance. And what do you see at a distance? Well, I can take a gander and have a look around. When you look further and further away, everything gets less and less fractal. And you can in the end have obvious, clear borders between what is and what is not. This is how polarities get constructed. It's by being at a distance, not being there anymore, not being present. One development that is very clear in the West, contrast to how it used to be, is how you meet in a congregation. Today at Friday's Mass for the coming Sunday, the Sabbath celebration, you see people standing and participating. They're using their bodies to do something. It's an actuality. They're not just in the Max Tegmark you have at world. They are doing it consciously and with their own will. They really want it. And the only time you can tell somebody is wanting something is when that person is doing something. Sweden, we used to have the same. In Mass, people were participating. But as time progressed, it became more and more passive. In the end, you sat down. You were no longer in the ceremony. You were just looking. And eventually, the priest, the vicar himself, was elevated away from the parishioners, put on a pedestal, and people had to look up to him. That created even a greater distance, and the vicar, the clerical, he made himself godlike, robbing God of his glory and power by being high above everyone else and taking the only active role in the sermon, in the liturgy. So we go from being participating in intimacy together with what's important and having our willingness there, because we are doing things. Cannot have a willingness without doing things. And by participating, by pronouncing, by chanting, by singing, you are there in the godliness, in the presence. There is no need to seek presence in the transcendental, in the Hugh Everett world. That presence that can only be made artificially by putting presence next to absence. This is true presence. This is not a device. This is not a conjuring. It's not a trick by the magician. It's something more juicy, more stable, fleshy. You are there. And that is in contrast to this other, money in the bank. You can feel it with every cell of your body, with every vein, with your whole being, not something way out of this world. We don't have to be bystanders. I think that's a good word. A bystander is a person that is not participating. He's looking at it, what's happening. He is also standing by. There is a time lag. He's waiting. Passivity has just those two traits. It's a bystander, not participating, thereby standing by, waiting for the opportunity to act whenever that happens, if ever. The reason ontic thinking was constructed was to cure an original lack of not being fully present in body and soul. That lack created the need to have a proxy, a plastic figurine. Well, that was not a few goats. There was quite a plentiful amount of goats. Hundreds of them. And they're moving in one direction with their bodies, with their goat-like features, to a direction. But the direction is not theirs. It's by the herdsman, the pastor, who's leading them to their abode, to safety and security. They do trust in him. It's just encouragement coming from his voice to the ones he takes care of, protecting them from dangers like wolves and jackals. That is true safety. That is something you can confide in. You need something you know doesn't change. That is safety. To feel safe, to feel secure. Mhm. How can you trust in something that constantly is changing, that is not founded on terra firma, not founded on being balanced, but it's like a long tree without branches, and it's going that way, it's going that way. It's not stable. It doesn't give anything to lean on to. And I think the modern man doesn't have anything to lean on to. I remember something my father's grandfather said: I feel pity for the future generations. And he had some point there, because that's the worst of all. Little does it help to, for the moment, have something above your head, something to eat, some security for the moment. That does not cut it in the long run. And that's all we have today. This is not how it used to be, and that is definitely not how it has to be. But this is the case today, I'd say. And he had a point, dear old Franz. There was good reason to feel pity for the future generations, because they lack their faith in God. Even the ones who's participating, because they're no longer participating, is passivity in the bottom. Get yourself more present. Be where you are. You are here now, on the ground. Do care for your own body. Take care of it. Foster it. Control your thoughts. Don't let the thoughts run you. You need to see them as existing things. Put markers on them. Identify them. Identify different feelings. All these things can be done when you stop just purely reacting to what's around you. Start to understand that there is something permanent that doesn't yield, that's not empty of substance, that doesn't have stability, tensegrity and all that. Something to trust in for future times. That is what intimacy means. It means to have trust in something to come. And that's the most important. And actually, to have trust in something to come, this is what we're all living for. Not only for the present, but for the future rewards. And those rewards can only come if we stuck with it, if we cling to it, if we don't give up every second. It couldn't have been a nice life for Bertrand Russell as well. He was not a happy chap in the end. You don't become happy when you change your mind 20 times. Get to something that is stable and never change. I think that's a good advice. Never ever change. That is the truth. That is what's pure. That is what you can hold on to. It's the same if you are lost at night. Go to where the light is, where it's stable or where it's secure. Don't go to where it's tempting. Maybe your illusions lure you to check other things once more and once again. And this is of course what authors been striving to, but they failed miserably sometimes. Like Kafka, they get caught up in contradictions and binary oppositions. And that was the idea of Derrida, to heal the text, to help the author, never to criticize him or pointing out negativities. but to heal the text away from these circumstances, these momentous things happening in the moment in the text that takes away the rhythm, the direction of the text. And this is exactly what happens in our lives. We get caught up in binary opposition. We jump from one thing to the other by defining something in contradistinction, what is not. That's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. Somebody ask you, Hans, what do you stand for? Well, my stance is the absolute opposite to my neighbor Charlotte, or something like that. Well, what will happen if Charlotte changes her mind? I will have to change it in directions I don't have any want for. That will actually put my own volition into peril. And that makes for less direction, not more. It can seem so firm to say, I really truly believe in this. But look, is there anything beneath the surface? Is there any action in it? Often action is the greatest proof of something actually happening. When we do something, there is always direction. And therefore, keep doing things. Don't give up doing things. Because every time you do things, you get more and more directed. Cling on to it. Because everything goes through moments. This jumping in between things, of course, in Bertrand Russell's case, was he got bored of the things he had, and then he stuck to obstacles, and then he changed himself. And then he has to do the whole process once more, and once more, and once more. We all have those things. We all have a starting point when we are in love with something, some idea, some ideology, and then it gets boring, and then we change. Well, it doesn't bring to fruit without resistance. It's the resistance, it's the struggle that makes the fruit sweet. If you look for resistance-less ideology, you will live a life like Bertrand Russell, constantly changing. But exactly in the moment when everything is uphill and the resistance is its greatest, that's when the reward comes. A lesson we learned from James Clear. All projects become bankrupt because people give up too early. Because we don't understand that the benefits doesn't come until after a year. They shouldn't come before. That would be horribly, horribly wrong. Because time is an important ingredient. We don't live in a logocentric world that everything is immediately, directly. It's a little bit like putting instant coffee in a microwave. You get the coffee before you even drank it. I think that's the modern time. We get too impatient and then we lose out on everything, all the good stuff, the sweet, juicy thing of success. Because for us to change, it takes at least 9 months to go from one muscle group to the other. It could take longer, but once it happens all over the body at the same time. I had conversation with several people the last week here, and they all witnessed to the same thing. Nothing happens for almost a year. And then, within one singular week, everything happens at once. And that is always the case. It never comes in portions. It's never equivalent to how much effort you put in. Because a habit changes after some time. It lets loose. It's almost the same like cutting down a tree. The tree won't move until you take the last chip out of it. It won't move at all. And then the whole tree falls at the same time. And that's an important lesson in these days, when we never stick to anything, because we change before the change has come. We change before the benefits has come. We sort of hand in our notice before even our salary, our annual salary has checked into our bank account. Then we give up. Time is an important ingredient. Time is not just an area to pass. Well, I'm going to pass time as quickly as possible to get my benefit. The benefit is part of time. That is the problematic with that. We made time into something independent of reality. It's just a line. I've spoken about this linear time before, but it seemed to be outside of reality for most people. And that is a myth. That's not how it is. What we earn, what we get, is a part of accumulated time. That cannot be done without time, because you need that time. It is knowledge. Time is knowledge. Time is not the time spent when you learn something. The action knowledge is time. That division is yet one more of those Western Occidental binary opposition that get you the illusion you can get everything directly now. That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even mean anything. But you can still be confused, and you are probably very confused if you say that. And heck, I have to admit I say it most of the time as well. But that's reality. It's nothing wrong with it. It's typical. It's typical to be that way. We are all humans in a way. And we are impatient. And that will never yield. But time is an important ingredient in knowledge. It's not like I need a troublesome time, I learn during time. That's absolutely wrong. Time is the ingredient in knowledge. It's not separated. And trying to separate them is as wrong as trying to separate mind and body, because no dividing line can be made. And the divide between time and knowledge is a random division. Never ever was there a philosopher who said, I want to put up a hypothesis. I want to divide knowledge and time, having one here and one there. Nobody said that. That sort of hypothesis would have been something that we would have been aware of, and we could have questioned. But this assumption is not even an assumption. It's part of the trauma, part of the amnesis. It's part of the hurt that Greek people suffered once upon a time. And by imitating that, we can be sure as hell to perceive and experience the same suffering for all our time. And that is not a pun. That is the real McCoy. Well, I say thank you very much from this ancient forest. Now the goats are gone, and so are the herdsman and his fellow dog friend. Bye-bye.